So yeah, so this session is primarily about the doctor's note building. So on the left-hand side of the doctor's iPad EHR, he can see all of the patients that are coming in today. Okay, so all of the patients who are coming in, he can see the time he'll be seeing them, and he can also see the chief complaint or the reason for the visit for the patient. So if I'm in Mike right now, and I jump into Mike, you see his entire patient chart from this view. So you've got today's visit, which would be the legal documentation for today. You've got it's almost like an overview, the overarching profile of the patient. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. So you've got like the profile, which is sort of cumulative. Think of the profile as patient-centric. So the profile is following the patient over time, whereas the visit is just for today. It's today's visit with Mike. Okay? And then you also have the history section. Now the history section is comprised of every inch of clinical documentation that has ever been created for Mike in this practice. So whether it's an x-ray, it's an EKG, it's a lab result, it's an MRI. You've also got previous notes, so all of the notes connected to Mike. If you want to see what you did with him last week, or you want to see what you did with him last year, you'll be able to pull up that PDF directly on the iPad and see that information right here. Okay, again, so x-rays, EKGs, MRIs, any JPEG PDF that you think is relevant to this patient's care, you can upload to the interface and be able to view on the iPad. Okay, so you're seeing this x-ray. All right, so you understand these three tabs. And I think if you understand these three tabs, you could navigate probably the whole system. Okay, so I'm going to go back to visit. So from the visit, you're building out note documentation. So the final result is you're building a PDF of this patient's encounter. Okay, so what we're trying to do, the vision of the company, is to let you take what you used to do on paper, keep it very, very simple, and build that onto the iPad. Okay, so take that PDF or take that Word document that you used to do on paper and build that onto the iPad for yourself. Okay, so if I hop into, and you can see that we give you two standard workflows that we saw coming up a lot. An H&P, as I'm sure you all know, is like the initial visit with the patient. So we do give you a workflow of sections here that outline a standard H&P. So what you would normally do in the room with the patient for the first visit. Okay. We also give you a standard workflow for a SOAP, so a follow-up, right? Standard SOAP workflow. And then you've also got a workflow for custom. So all of your custom documentation, every inch of custom documentation that you've ever created for, like, okay, so I think a good example of this is that when we first came out with the app, we had a SOAP note. And I know that certain EHRs and they just provide a SOAP note, and you must, whatever note you're making, even if it has nothing to do with a follow-up, maybe it's a sleep disorder exam or a phone consultation, other EHRs, they actually force you to put it into an H&P or a SOAP. With our system, we're enabling you to build out a completely different PDF separate from an H&P or SOAP encounter. And you can build out 100 of these custom forms. All right, so for now, we'll just focus on the H&P and SOAP. I think that's pretty easy and straightforward and definitely useful for you. Okay, so if you're looking at just the H&P and the SOAP note, let me show you. So we give you default templates. We don't force you to kind of create this from scratch. We do give you default templates. So on the right-hand side, you've got templates, right? This is what when I say the word template, this is what I'm talking about. It's like a series of drop downs, right? Free text comments. You can type in free text comments, buttons here. It's a series of these tools that comprise a template, right? So whenever I say the word template, I'm talking about on the right-hand side, this guy here. On the left-hand side, you have what the templates fill in. So templates are made to fill these sections. All right, so you've got these sections over here built from these templates. Okay, so every single one of these sections can have a custom template. And what we do is we give you a default set. So we're giving you a default set of H&P custom templates. And let me show you what these default ones look like. First of all, if I want to use speech to text, I can use this in conjunction. So let me try and demo this. Chief complaint, runny nose. Cool. So you saw I just talked into the mic, right? I talked into the iPad, and that transcribes into text. Now let me go back up to HPI. Now from this template here, I'm like, okay, so I want to turn chief complaints on. I want to type in some problems, maybe runny nose. Maybe I got sore throat. Okay, then I've got duration, I've got date, maybe I'll throw the date in there. Let me check out the onset is sudden, and that's good for HPI. Okay, so all of these drop downs that I just used comprise sentences. So building out pretty robust documentation, haven't done all that much typing. Okay, so you're able to look the patient in the eye and build the documentation just by pointing and clicking. Okay, then let me go back to HPI. Cool. So you saw me use the button, you saw me use free text, and then you saw me use a drop-down. You also saw speech to text, and there's one other tool I want you to check out. We give you these buttons. So these are macro buttons. Okay, you get 100 custom macro buttons. You can name the button, and then you can tell that button what to generate. Okay, so you can say, okay, sore throat, I press sore throat, and it dumps this sentence into the note. So if you are describing a sore throat the exact same way every single time, then you want to build yourself 100 custom buttons that, actually are enabling you to create, I guess you would call it like boilerplate text, right? That you can just press a button and it will go right into your note. And to build these buttons, okay, so you see them appear here on the iPad, but I'm sure you're like, okay, yeah, well, how do they actually get there? Go to drchrono.com. Okay, so go to the website. If you want to build buttons on your iPad, if you want to become a programmer for a little bit, right? Go to the website, go to Clinical Tools, go to Clinical Macros, and the clinical macros are right here. Okay, so now I can leave these. I think we give you one like test one that you can leave for yourself, or you could totally delete it. But you can take these and you can build out your own. So you can be like, okay, I want to build a button for normal respiratory findings. Okay, so if I wanted to save this macro, all I would have to do is press Update Keyboard Macro, and that button will automatically appear for me to use on the iPad in the room with the patient. Okay, so all of these buttons are 100% customizable. You're free to use them whenever you want. Okay, so I'm going to go back down here, and let's go to... And I just want to, like, FYI for anybody who joined the call late, it turns out that there's a group of people watching the call with a lot of background noise. If you have a question, I want this to be super interactive. I had to put everybody on mute, which I absolutely hate to do. It's like annoying. But if you have a question, there's a chat feature on the control panel for GoTo Training, and you can use that, ask a question. All right, so feel free to do that. Cool. So I gave you just sort of a high-level overview of how this all works. So you've got on the right-hand side templates that are completely customizable. They fill out the sections on the left-hand side. You can use speech-to-text, free text comments, or you can use these macro buttons to create your note. All right? So now what I want to do is I want to show you how you can make your own template for HPI. You can make your own template for review of systems, your own template for physical exam. You absolutely do not have to use the ones that we give you. Okay, so to maneuver or to manipulate any of the templates, you must do this from the computer. Okay, so you're adjusting and you're creating your templates from the computer. You're using your templates on the iPad. So if I go up to Clinical Tools and I go to H&P SOAP Workflow Editor, again, Clinical Tools, H&P SOAP Workflow. You got to choose which one you want to work on. Can't work on all of them at the same time. You got to say, okay, I'm just working on the H&P physical exam. That's all I want to work on. And to start, let me show you what it looks like on the iPad. Cool. So let me also notice you can like flip rotations. So I've got it to the right. I've got it to the right. All right, you see that? Okay, cool. Same thing, same app, right? Just viewing it differently. From here, if I look at physical exam, the exact same set of tools that are built from the computer physical exam appear on the iPad. The exact same set, okay? So if I'm here and I'm like, okay, I just want to change the layout. What's with all these blanks, right? I want to get rid of these blanks because they're annoying and they're taking up space. So I can take the blank and I can just drag it down here. Okay, so that's the first thing. This is the easiest way to manipulate the form. You can change the order of the way the questions are asked. So I'm just dragging and dropping, dragging and dropping. If I want to take neck and I want that to be up here, I can drag it up here. Really, really simple. What's nice is that the second you make the update on the computer, if I now go back to menu and I go to home, and then I go into the patient chart, and then I go to, let's say, physical exam, you can see that the ordering on the iPad is automatically changed as well. So any addition, manipulation, change, deletion that you make on the computer, that's exactly how it's going to appear on the iPad. All right? So let's just show you how to delete. So first I showed you how to move, right? Now I'm going to show you how to delete. Let's get rid of skin. We don't want to ask about skin. Okay, so I just chose skin, scroll down, just press delete, press OK, and it's gone. Let's get rid of the second skin because we want to completely get rid of it. Go down, press delete, press OK, gone. Okay, so the skin is gone. So two things so far, right? You've learned how to move it, drag and drop, and you've learned how to delete it. Just press on it, scroll down, press delete. Okay. The next thing I'd like to teach you is how to understand this bottom tool. Notice each of these guys are their own tool, right? Each of these, they call it a value. I think that's like programmer language. It's hard to understand. I call it a tool. We're going to change it in the interface to be called a tool because you guys will understand it better too. But yeah, each of these tools comprise a template, right? So each one looks like this at the bottom. Okay, so no matter which one I press, they all have the same set of boxes at the bottom. So if you can understand this, if you can just understand what each of these things mean, you're golden. You can manipulate every single one of our forms. Okay, so if I go to if I look at label, all right, let me again pull it up. It's easier if I like put it next to the iPad so you can sort of understand what I'm showing you here. Okay. All right, so if I go to lungs abnormal on the iPad. Okay. Okay. So you see that this on the iPad and this from the computer obviously look the same. Like it's the same list here that appears here. Okay, so when I say label from here, this just means the name. You're just it has nothing to do with actually like pops into your PDF note. It's got nothing to do with the way in which it's generating. It's just the name. It's for you. You're the only one that will see it. Okay? So the label is the name. The comment, again, just for you. It's an internal way to remind yourself of what you're working on. That's all it is, okay? Now, this is actually super important. The SOAP note line item. This is programming. We're actually letting you program the iPad. Okay, so you're able to press field, and by pressing field, you're telling the iPad, hey, I'm either making a free text or I'm making a drop down. Okay, if I press yes or no, then you're telling, hey, I'm making a button. Okay, so fields, yes and no. Fields, yes and no. So let me change it to yes and no to actually give you a visual example of what I'm talking about. So, okay. So from, let's go to, you see lungs right here, right? And you see right now that it's a drop down, lungs abnormal. What happens when I take lungs abnormal, right here, same exact thing on the computer, and I just change it to yes and no? Press update fields. Okay, go back here. Go back into patient chart. Go back to physical exam. And check it out. You're going to see it. See? It turned it into a button. Remember, it was just this guy. Because you're programming. You're telling the iPad what to do. So all I did was just change the drop down. That's it. That's all I did. I changed this to yes, no. And it changes the iPad into a button. All right, I'm going to change it back so it's, really fermented in your head. And don't worry, if this is at all overwhelming, I have screenshots, I have arrows, I have so much to help you sort of understand what this is. Okay, so if I refresh, I go back to the home page. I go back to patient chart. I go back to the physical exam. And it's a drop down again. All just from that one piece of the puzzle. All right? So like I said, if you can just understand, I'm going further with this. You got this. This is the name, right? This is telling the iPad, what are you doing, right? What are you trying to make on the iPad? What kind of tool are you making, okay? And then this from here is filling that. So if I chose fields, and these are my drop downs, then you'll see each one on each line. So each one on each line appears here for me to choose. Let's say that I want to, because this box controls the drop downs, this is where I would be able to manipulate the drop down. So if I'm like, okay, I want to get rid of I never ask these questions, so I'm going to get rid of these three. Okay, and then I'm going to add, and I'm just showing it this way so you can very clearly see. Okay, so I just want you to see, and notice I put one on each line. Okay, if I press update, very simple, right? Go back here, go back there, go back into patient chart, go back to physical exam. Aha, that's simple. And it's instant. It's the second you do it. Okay, so you change it, you take away, you add, whatever. It's the second you do it. All right, so if I go back here, you see that it's there. So this box controls your drop down. It makes it, it changes it. You can, if you were to add, you can add like a list of 100 choices. Just make sure they're on each line. All right. You see how with this one, I can choose more than one? If I wanted to mandate it that I only could choose one, this is where this next box sort of comes into play, right? So if I wanted to choose it so that I can only choose one, okay, then all I would have to do is uncheck the allow multiple selections box. So uncheck that, get rid of it. Press update. Go back to the home. Go back inside the patient chart. And then if I go here, see, it forces me now to only choose one because I took that box away, right? Just that little check box, I took it away. So now I can only choose one. So you're already 50% done with this thing that I'm showing you. That one thing I said that if you know this whole thing, you will know everything that you need to know to build your note. So here's the name. This is like telling it, okay, I'm building a button, I'm building a drop down, whatever I'm building. This is my drop downs, okay? This is if I want to be able to check off more than one. And here, this is a little different. So this is like paragraphing. So like, how do I control, and this is super important to the way the note is actually spitting out into the PDF. So notice how like from here, this is kind of listy. Some doctors hate this. Like they want it to be prose. They want it to be paragraph form. They don't want it to look like it was spit out from, you know, a form builder. They want it to look natural. So if I go to like review of systems, I can give you an idea of what that'll look like. So let's say I wanted it to all be in like paragraphs, right? Not a list, paragraphs. So notice here, not general, ignore, let's actually take general away so that you don't get confused. Okay. So take a look at the way that the actual review of systems paragraph spits out here. And from here, if you're looking at the paragraph form of this, you've got one thing coming after the next, right? So it's creating like a prose. It's creating something as if you're building a paragraph, not listing something out. And we're not telling you what we think is better. You guys absolutely know what's better to you, right? The way you want your note to generate. Just know that if you want to, this is how we set it by default. So if you do nothing, this is how your note will generate the spacing. But if you want to control your spacing, this when you use this here. Okay, that's when you use these guys, these two check boxes. So are you inserting a new line or are you inserting a new paragraph before the text? So do you want it to be like this? This is inserting a new line. This is creating a list. So if you want it to be a list, then you're choosing that. If you want it, do you notice how there's a big space in between this new paragraph? Do you want it to be a new paragraph? You're choosing this. All right. And now this last box here. So I think you got these two things. It's just spacing. Again, I've got pictures with arrows and screenshots to help you understand what each of these things mean. Don't worry. Now, this box is actually the most important box in the whole system of building a note. Okay? So under no circumstances should this box ever be blank. You know why? Because, sorry, it's not just me being really annoying. It's like this box, if that's blank, then nothing comes up in your note. So all the time we get people like sending in a ticket or sending in like, you know, calling support saying, hey, I made all these changes. I've made this incredible note, but nothing's actually coming up into my PDF. If this is blank, then none of this will matter. Okay, this is what's telling the system what you want the actual note to say. Okay, so that sentence appears in the note now based upon, let me show you actually. Let me go to menu, go to physical exam. Let me go to lungs. We choose it. Let's choose that. Let's press update. Go to menu, go to view complete note. All right. So I was able to create this sentence because all I had to do was choose respiratory distress. And then if it followed what I told it to do from this box. So it took that, you see it right there. Without this sentence in this box, the system doesn't know what to put in your note. Okay, so just make sure that you're filling out this box to tell the system what to put in your note. So pretty simple, right? I mean, you understand how this whole tool works now. You understand the name. You understand you're telling the iPad what to do. You understand your drop downs, right? You got your spacing. And then you got what kicks into the note. What are you spitting into the note? Okay, so if you want to adjust anything in the H&P or SOAP, if you want to completely wipe out these templates or build your own, H&P and SOAP, you go to Clinical Tools, H&P SOAP Workflow Editor. All right, if you're thinking about custom, then you want to go to the Custom Workflow Editor. Custom's a little different. Custom's a little, I'm not saying it's tricky, but it's definitely different. Okay, because H&P is really straightforward. You're making a history and physical. You're making a SOAP note. These things can't change. You know, you always, in a SOAP note, you're always filling out subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Those things don't change. In a custom, they can be anything you want. Okay, you can make them a diet plan. You can make them a physical. You can make them a laboratory flow sheet. You can make them a brow lift. You could make anything you want in the custom. So just take what you're doing on paper and build it here. Okay, but there's more freedom. You're not forced to use review of systems, physical exam, assessment. You're making your own. And if you never want to use the custom, you don't have to. If you want to use the custom in conjunction with an H&P, you can. If you fill out a standard H&P and then all of a sudden you want to add a brow lift, you can do that. Okay, you can, anything you don't fill out from here will not come up in your PDF. Anything you do fill out will come up in your PDF. Cool. Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much for being on the call. It's just like a high-level overview. If you want to attend like a more advanced group training, you're very welcome. If you want to attend like a more advanced group training, you can. I'm going to set it up so that like this is like just an intro into building your note. We need like an advanced building of your note. Like once you're digging in, you've done some of it, and like you just need help sort of sorting through what you're doing. Okay? We're really passionate about the notes. So anything you need, you know, let us know. And I'll just put my email in the chat. Just put my email in the chat, so let me know if you have any questions. Okay? Have a great day. Yay!